In this episode of Untold Chapters, I'm joined by John Barnett, the author of the Windy Bee book series, which follows Baker, Fred Roll, on exciting adventures around Bumble Bay. Hi, John. Thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Hi, Sophie. Absolutely fine. Great to talk to you.
You too. Would you like to start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so my name's John Barnett, and after a career in English language teaching, I've now got a second career as a children's author. So started writing the Windy Bee books a few years ago. So that keeps me busy now.
The Windy Bee stories originated from a family tales that were told over 30 years ago. How did you transition from telling these tales aloud to turning them into developed books? And what challenges did you face in that process?
Well, Sophie, it certainly is very different telling the Windy Bee stories to your children and then converting these stories into the written form for a very different audience. I found that I had to be so much more disciplined and structured when actually writing down the stories, compared with that flexibility you have, obviously, with the spoken word, just telling a story at bedtime. And when I decided to finally get down to writing Windy Bee the Christmas Lights, I realized I needed to have a plan. And that plan really was to have one or two paragraphs of text along each full page illustration. So, in a way, that was a further complication. But I think it was very good for me. It meant that I had to refine the text, try and get enough excitement in one or two paragraphs for Alice, the illustrator, to be able to do a full page illustration that went alongside each page of text. And yeah, we that's how we started off, and we're sticking with this format throughout the whole series. Unfortunately, children, parents, and teachers seem to like the way we balance the text and the visuals.
I think they do complement each other really well, especially because it's kind of geared a bit more towards older children. I think having the consistency with the text and the images throughout the series really helps propel it further.
Yes, I think yeah, it's nice to hear you say that, and that's certainly what parents tell me, because if they're reading the books to their children, they like to have that text, and sometimes they read the book in sections. But otherwise, yeah, for children who read the book themselves, they can plow all the way through it and read the whole thing. So it seems to work for everybody.
Yeah, and especially having it be a book series that you're consistently building on, it's nice for it all to look the same and have the same format because then it helps the parents and the children think, oh, the next one's coming out, let's get that and read it and continue the journey with all the characters.
Yes, that's the idea. And well, we've got the fourth one coming out soon, and I think that if that's the first one that parents actually buy, it also can, as I saw with the third book, it does inspire them to get the first and second books. So they've gradually building up the set forwards or backwards, either starting with the Christmas book and then going forward, or as I say, getting into it late on and then thinking, oh, yes, I'd like the others as well.
Yeah, it's lovely that they all have the same characters, the same style, the same text, but you can kind of start, like you said, anywhere in the series and it all still makes sense. That's quite difficult to do, really, when you're publishing a book. So I think you've done great there.
Oh, thanks.
So the Windy Bee stories combine fantasy and adventure with important life lessons, such as overcoming adversity and helping others. How do you approach making these deeper themes into fun, engaging stories for children?
Well, hopefully the fantasy and adventure elements of each story already provide a bit of fun, the fun element. And then there's also a fair bit of humor, slapstick, and then the fun interaction between the characters. So children are very good at picking out the fun things as well as the important themes in the book. For example, each time I read a Windy Bee story in a school and say Fred Roll the baker, there's always a bit of laughter and giggling and a small chorus of Fred Roll, that sounds like bread roll. So yeah, deeper themes, but always in a light-hearted way, and yeah, lots of fun throughout the book.
It's nice to have those little Easter eggy bits in it as well, so that even as a parent's reading it, they can still enjoy it and notice these little things that their children might not notice.
Yes, 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 that's what I've found.
So the journey to bring Windy Bee books to life started in a very heartfelt way with your commitment to children in hospitals. How did that experience shape the tone of the stories, particularly those with a Christmas theme?
Well, yes, I mean, if I hadn't been in the hospital just before one Christmas, I would never have written the Windy Bee books. They'd have just remained stories that I told to my children. The main reason for writing Windy Bee the Christmas Lights was for each child in Addenbrooke's Hospital, Cambridge, to have a present from me if they were spending Christmas in hospital rather than at home. I found out that there were between 50 and 70 children in hospital over Christmas, and I wanted them to have a gift. Of, was all that I had really to provide them with, and so I thought, yeah, an exciting, fun reading experience and stimulating visual book. I think that was really important for me, that the story was very visual, because you know you have to bear in mind that children in hospital, their energy levels might not be that high, certainly not high enough to process several pages of text or take in a story that was being read to them by their parents on the ward. So yeah, lots of nice pictures. That was very important to me, and obviously, you know, Christmas. What better opportunity to have lots of nice visuals than Christmas?
That's such a special and inspiring backstory to your books. It must be so amazing to see their little faces light up once they receive their books. And like you said, some of them might be in different conditions where they can't show it to you in a way that they might want to, but I bet even just giving it to them and them receiving it was such a lovely moment.
Yes, it's because the Windy Bee book's been out for the Christmas Lights has been out for a few years now. I've actually been able to go into the hospital, to the children's wards, and share the book with the kids, read bits, show them the pictures, and all being well, I'll be able to do that again this December. Obviously, it wasn't possible during the pandemic,
Mhm.
but I'd like to get back on track with that with the kids in hospital towards the end of this year.
That would be so lovely. The readings in schools and hospitals are such an important part of sharing Windy Bee. What was the most memorable feedback that you've received from either children, parents, or teachers after you've done a reading?
Well, I think if I go back to the beginning of this idea of actually writing Windy Bee the Christmas Lights, and getting it published, I actually needed to know if the story appealed to children, parents, and teachers. But just as a story without any visuals, all I had at that time was the story that I told to my kids. And then I wrote it down. And fortunately, a local primary school gave me the opportunity to test it out to a couple of classes, different ages, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. That's the sort of age range for the Windy Bee books. So I was nervous, sitting there at the front of the class with just this text and a classroom of kids and teachers in front of me. But fortunately, it went very well. The children seemed to really love the story. They laughed, gasped, and cheered in all the right places. And yeah, that was the first feedback that I had, and probably the most important feedback. And afterwards, the teachers said that I should definitely try and get the story published. They felt I should give it a go. So that was really amazing, and that gave me then the inspiration to find an illustrator and a publisher.
I can imagine just going in with the foundations and receiving that feedback, even without the illustrations and stuff that brings the book together. I can only imagine how nice it was to hear the positive feedback from both the children and the teachers. Because, like I said, you've only really got the bones of the book. So having such a nice reception for that definitely, I can imagine, spurred you on to continue with where you were going with it.
Yes, I mean, if it had all just flopped and there'd been no reaction from the kids and the teachers had said, "Well, thank you for coming in. Bye bye." I just wouldn't have taken it any further, I suppose. But yeah, it was just what I needed at that moment.
Has there ever been a time where Alice's illustrations have inspired you to make any changes to the stories, or vice versa? And how has your creative partnership helped the final product?
Well, I will never forget the first time Alice's amazing illustrations came through to me by email. So there had obviously been a few months between the reading at the primary school, and then getting in touch with Alice and working together with her, and as I say, receiving her amazing illustrations, and I was just overwhelmed with joy. For me, it was absolutely brilliant. And just to come back to my daughters, they had a bit of a different reaction. Although they loved the illustrations, they said, "Oh, Alice has got to make lots of changes here because Fred Roll, Heidi, the other characters, Windy Bee, it doesn't look like that." They had a totally different imagination of how it looks. And I said to them, "Look, this is how Alice imagines her Windy Bee world. And, it's different from yours, different from mine. And now, 4 books on, we couldn't imagine Fred, Heidi, and Windy Bee looking any different to the way Alice portrays it all." And what I absolutely love, I mean, this creative partnership, is that each time I get Alice's illustrations for the next book, she retells my story back to me in pictures. And I just love that. So yeah, it's two stories: my text, her visuals, and of course we both go through the text and illustrations together to see if anything needs fine tuning, any changes. And I think you asked me how the creative partnership influences the final product. Well, I'm very much aware that each paragraph or two that I write needs to give Alice the chance to come up with a full page illustration. So there has to be enough in one of the paragraphs, or maybe in both, that go on that page of text opposite her illustration, that will inspire her, fire her imagination to come up with an illustration. So I think as the series has developed, I've become more and more aware of that. And I love seeing when Alice comes back with the illustration, is it with one paragraph of text or two, and which images has she chosen? And that's really full of surprises.
That's so lovely. I like how you said that she kind of tells the story back to you. I've never really thought of it like that, but I guess if you're just writing the words and she's coming up with the images, it is showing you the story from a whole different perspective, which is, I can imagine, since you started these stories like 30 years ago, seeing it kind of in a new visual way is just like having a brand new story presented to you.
Absolutely. And the thing is that I get the whole book from Alice. She sends me the whole lot of images, the full page illustrations, and does it with the layout to show which paragraphs are going with each illustration. So that's great for me. And it's actually great for Austin Macauley's production department because Alice sends them the layout for them to work with, and they love that now.
Yeah, I guess since she's been working with you since book one as well, you've got it down now. You're on to book four. You know what you're doing now.
Yes, we should do. We've done our apprenticeship.
Yes. With holiday traditions being such a big part of the Christmas lights story, do you have any personal Christmas traditions that have inspired parts of this book?
Oh, definitely. I mean, a Christmas tree and Christmas biscuits have always been a key part of our Christmas family traditions. And Christmas, well, it's special for everyone, but we certainly had lots of things that we always did in the run up to Christmas. And one of those in the days before Christmas when our children were young, and actually we've also done that with our grandchildren now. We would always, wait till it got dark and then just walk around the village, and just a couple of streets from our house round the corner was a very special house. As soon as you put a coin in the box on the garden fence, suddenly the whole sky would light up. There was music, a fantastic display of thousands of Christmas lights on the house and in the garden. And maybe that delightful image of all those Christmas lights inspired me to choose the Christmas lights as the title for the first Windy Bee book, and have all those Christmas decorations and Christmas lights in the first book.
That sounds so magical. It's like that typical nostalgic Christmas that you imagine, like from the American films of all the big Christmas lights. I can see just what you mean in my head.
Yeah, I mean the thing, uh, when you go around now, lots of houses have Christmas lights and decorations up in the garden and everything. But 30 odd years ago, that wasn't the case. This was rather unique, this display that we had in the village, which made it all the more impressive and special.
I feel like that's very an American thing, and for it to have been there for so long, even before that's all come over,
Mm,
it's very special, I think.
yes. Yeah.
In the snow race, Fred finds himself in the middle of an unexpected challenge. What inspired the idea of a snow race as the central idea in this story?
Well, Sophie, if you could find a way into all the stuff in our garage and look up at the ceiling, you'd find an old wooden sledge suspended from it with some pretty frayed rope. I should probably get those renewed sometime. And yeah, that's where it came from, all those sledge rides. And we've actually spent many a Christmas in Germany with my wife's family, and at the foot of some mountains. And when snow fell, there was often a family snow race on the mountains above where they live. And just like in Windy Bee, our own snow races were full of excitement, laughter, and very often the odd disaster. So I had the mix for that book as well.
I just love the sentimental stories you have behind all these books. It's so lovely to hear.
Thanks.
So, the theme of community is strong in the treasure chest, with the people of Banbull Bay working together to save the hospital. How important was it to you to emphasize the power of community in this story?
Very good question. Very good question, Sophie. Yeah, I mean, wherever I look, whether it's in my own community or in the local hospital with the charity, I I see year in, year out that so much more can be done if people work together as a team. And we probably all know that, but there are times, sometimes we just don't seem to support each other as much as we could, as much as we should. That's why I made community spirit and working together for a common goal such key elements of Windy Bee, the treasure chest. I thought that was a way to bring all of that out in the search for the treasure.
It's definitely a really important message to send to children as well. Working together in a group, whether that be as your family or at school or even just with friends, I think showing them how big of an impact working in a group can make rather than being selfish or not wanting to share. It's just so nice for children to have a story that teaches them that in such a fun and exciting way.
Thank you. Yes, yes, I hope it works. And seeing the reaction from the children, particularly when I do the school readings, the kids are right behind the people of Windy Bee. They want them to succeed, and yeah, that's great.
Each Windy Bee book introduces exciting new challenges for Fred and his community. How do you keep this sense of adventure fresh and engaging for readers as the series progresses?
Well, obviously, I hope children and their parents will want to read the new adventures for Fred Roll and everyone at Windy Bee as the series develops. But I also have to be aware that some of them may only ever read one Windy Bee book in the series. So this means each Windy Bee book has to be self-contained, a standalone story, complete in itself, beginning, middle, and end, so that when children, parents close up the book, they they feel they've got that one whole particular story. But at the same time, with the Windy Bee series progressing, I'm aware that all the different stories do have to present the reader with, as you said, fresh and engaging stories, new adventures. And through this mix of fantasy, mystery, suspense, and humor, yeah, a lot of variety. That's how I want to keep each story fresh, as well as providing a certain comfort and familiarity for those readers who do get on board and follow Windy Bee right throughout the series. And maybe one other thing is, of course, following Windy Bee throughout the year means you follow Windy Bee through the seasons, and that opens the Windy Bee world up to a lot more variety than just Christmas lights and snow races. You can do fair weather and sunny fun things as things get warmer.
As you've mentioned to us that you kind of have a rough plan for having Windy Bee, having a story for each month. Is there any exciting adventures that we can expect in the future so we can develop on this series, or do you want to give a hint to anything?
Right. Oh, always willing to give a hint. Yes. So the grand plan is to have a baker's dozen of Windy Bee,
Mm. I like that.
fitting for Fred Roll the baker.
Yes.
So 13 stories with a Christmas tale to start off, and then obviously the snow race gets the next year off to a good start, and then the books run right throughout a full year until the story finishes off with a second Christmas story, and that's the last that would be the last story in the series. But the fourth Windy Bee book, and that's called Windy Bee: The Storm Rescue, and I just heard at the end of last week from the Austin Macauley production team that they're scheduling early 2025 for Windy Bee: The Storm Rescue to come out. So that should be exciting. And Alice's illustrations for Windy Bee: The Storm Rescue are absolutely amazing again. Lots of wow moments for the readers. And yeah, the book signals the end of winter, ushers in the start of spring. So we can get the spring and summer stories out next, and hopefully in the coming months and years that will happen. I've written the whole series now,
Oh,
so
wow.
all the manuscripts are done. Different themes, adventures, characters, new characters pop in and out as the Windy Bee series progresses. There's the obviously the usual, the central characters throughout, and hopefully all these books will keep me, Alice, and the Austin Macauley team busy for a while to go.
Yeah, definitely. Like I've said before in this interview, I just love all the backstories. I love the thought process. You have everything so organized in your head by the sounds of it. With all the different months, everything's written out. I can't wait to see the next one come through.
Oh, thanks. So, yeah, I mean, we're back to your original question about the difference between telling the story to kids and now having Windy Bee in the written form. In the early days, years ago, when these were just told at bedtime, I mean, they were all over the place, all different seasons and changes from time to time. But actually putting them down and writing them as books, I needed that order, I needed that structure, I needed it all to fit and hang together, and that's why I had to come up with that plan. And of
Mhm.
course, Alice needs to know where it's all going and be able to prepare for what comes next. And yeah, it's a lovely journey we do together now.
Yeah, you and Alice have done such a fantastic job putting them together.
Thank you. Thank you. Good
No
to hear.
worries. So that is all the questions I have for you today. Is there anything that you would like to say to anyone that might be listening?
Well, as we're coming up for Christmas, just to wish everyone a great festive season with lots of lights, fun, and maybe the chance to explore the world of Windy Bee at Christmas with Windy Bee: The Christmas Lights, and maybe beyond with other books if you like the first one.
Thank you so much, John. It's been lovely to speak with you.
You too, Sophie. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Untold Chapters. If you're listening on YouTube, please like and subscribe, or if you're listening on Spotify, please follow us and leave a 5-star review. The Windy Bee series is available to buy in a limited time bundle on the Austin Macauley website.